Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio Success Express Business and Career Show. Today, we welcome back Glynn Burrows, who's a family history expert, a tour guide, and owner of Norfolk Tours in England. When it comes to tourism, Glynn knows it because he puts together packages, customized tours for his clients. So when you go to England, you call Glynn, just go to norfolk-tours.co.uk. You call Glynn and you go, or email him, say, hey, I want to go to, have a bed and breakfast experience, and then I want to go see this castle. So it's really whatever you want to experience. So to do that, he's going around seeing everything, seeing the hotels, seeing the inns, seeing the restaurants you're going to. So he knows where he's taking you and can recommend it and feel safe that when you fly to England, your experience is going to be top notch. And so he's back on the show today to talk about this term called bleisure. I don't know if any of us like that word, but it's be-leisure. So it's mixing business with leisure and as a form of travel. And of course, now with all of us working digitally and remotely, or not all of us, but a lot of us, this is also a big deal. You may be going to the office maybe twice a week or once a week, and then the rest of the time you could be anywhere in the world and work. So this is a very new thing happening in the tourism industry, and that's what he's going to talk about. He's got an article up on blendradioandtv.com. It'll also be in the upcoming Success Express Business Magazine. And Glynn is here every fourth Saturday. So welcome back, Glynn. How are you?
I'm fantastic today. Thanks. How are you lot?
Oh, doing good. Nancy says hi. She's playing with her computer, and I'm having to keep her away from the toilet. She can play with the computer, but don't put the toilet in the computer. The computer in the toilet.
No, don't do either of those things.
No, don't do either one. It's not going to work. But otherwise, she would be here. But we both are excited about this topic. We don't like the word bleisure. I don't know who came up with it. I think it was a good idea, but it's just that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
But it's a
nice
concept that we travel full time, and so a lot of destinations are used to being conference and convention, and then having breakout sessions for during a conference. Oh, you got to do a little bit of something, and then used to the families of the person in the conference and convention. Maybe they'll book an extra day. Even the person there may say, hey, I want to go see this. I'm going to add another day. But that would typically be midweek, and then weekend is for the leisure travelers. Well, now I think it's a free-for-all, which is good for the tourism industry. I think you're going to see where during COVID, the whole midweek conference thing tanked, really.
Yes.
And now, because of people working remotely, we're seeing smaller retreats, smaller business groups, themed things like you can't have your sales rah meetings, in the office all the time. So maybe you'll be working remotely and then having a sales meeting in a unique location to get that teamwork back. So it's a mixed bag, but the tourism industry, if especially the independents, look at it a different way, as you say in your article, and capitalize on it and just makes a few tweaks, everyone will be happy.
Yeah, the opportunities there are endless, really, because what a lot of business conversations are about is how to make that little bit extra out of each guest. I know it's not nice talking about how to grab more money out of people, but basically, if you're in business, you want to get more money out of people. But on the other side of things, as the business person using the service, you want to get more fun out of being where you are. So you don't mind paying that little bit extra if you're getting that little bit extra back. And there are so many opportunities of just adding on a little bit of something extra. And even if you don't get more money out of the customer, you're getting a better rapport with your customer, and you're getting repeat custom. Because if I go somewhere and I just get a mediocre service, I don't go back. I go back to somewhere that I get that little bit extra. And it doesn't matter if it costs me a couple of pounds extra. If I just get that, if I get made to feel special, then I'm likely to go back. And
Mhm.
by businesses actually thinking about what the person is there for and make it more comfortable for them, then they're more likely to come back. I mean, I was saying to you earlier, I go to a lot of hotels,
Mhm.
and very often there'll be a table for me to work at, but the only thing for me to sit on will be a stool, one of those little four-legged things with no back, which is fine if I'm doing my hair or I'm doing my makeup or whatever. I don't wear makeup. But if I'm just doing my hair, that's fine. But if I'm sitting down for an hour and I want to do my emails or I want to do whatever, that's really uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And I can't sit on a bed and use my laptop. It's really uncomfortable. So just the thought of putting a decent chair in the room would be nice,
Mhm.
or to have somewhere rather than the bar that I can go and do a little bit of computer work. Even if it was a broom cupboard with a table and chair in it, it would be better than trying to do my back in sitting on a stool in the bedroom or sitting on the bed. So it's little
Agree.
tiny things.
And now that we're doing so much over Zoom and all these meeting platforms, not just Zoom, um, people have to be visual. And yes, we have our backgrounds, and I like it because I've got the little wheelie thing, the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
It looks like fun to me. But if you're working digitally and remotely, you don't want you can't be sitting on the bed all crunched up trying
Yeah.
to put your laptop on your knees and it's wobbling, especially if you're in a sales call. If you're in development, that's not how you want to be. And a
No.
lot of times you're traveling. And if you're in a great hotel or in, bed and breakfast and great lodgings, and they've taken care of you, and you log into that meeting online, how many people are you going to tell about just like, hey, I just checked in here. I'm in Norfolk, and you wouldn't believe how cute the village is. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, we went here, we went to a pub. Now they're already that's marketing for the inn.
Exactly.
Now
and
if
I
it's
mean,
the other way around,
like you say, I mean, if, say, for instance, I was sitting in, we'll say, the Swan at Lavenham, lovely hotel, a medieval timber framed, absolutely gorgeous hotel. If I was sitting at the desk in one of the bedrooms at Lavenham, and behind me, you've got this fantastic timber framed ceiling and, paintings on the wall, that's going to take people's interest, and they'll say, well, where are you? And I'll say, well, I'm in the middle of Lavenham, this is the Swan, or wherever. If I'm in Catherine, you remember Catherine, one of my bed and breakfast ladies, if I was in one of her accommodation rooms, it's a medieval ecclesiastical building. It used to be a college for monks, and I'm sitting in one of her bedrooms, and there I am in this medieval building. How lovely that is, and what a fantastic advert that is for the hotel or the bed and breakfast or
it
whatever.
is.
Or
And listen,
if I'm just sitting and the window is behind me, I can show people the view. These
exactly.
sorts of things.
And also have good internet. And it's gotten better over the last year or two, but internet is a big deal for the
Oh,
business
yes.
traveler. And I want to say, we think about the big brand hotels that are used to conferences and having internet. Sometimes you pay more for better internet according to your needs. So a lot of them are built up a little bit better in regards to having a workspace, having a business center down. Some of them have a business center. During COVID, a lot of times you're going to want to work in your own room, especially with Zoom meetings now. And we have areas where there's networking places. There's the bar, the coffee shops, and things like that. But I think the independent hotels, really, from our experience and staying in inns, we're seeing a lot of the midweek travelers are people like there was a lot of traveling nurses, educators that are
Yes.
traveling right now.
Yeah.
People who are in sales, developing a region.
Yeah.
And so they'll stay in a bed and breakfast, especially women will stay on their own in a bed and breakfast more than a huge hotel. And, those are the solo kind of travelers, not necessarily always in the group. But I was just going to say, I think when you go to those inns, like the bed and breakfast, they'll tell you, hey, you don't want to be walking down this street by yourself, or you want to be walking this one. Hey, oh, you're interested in art, and they'll help you with directions. They'll help you if get the most out of it. But a lot of times the rooms may not be set up for working. And so
Yeah.
I think or sometimes you can use the dining room, but I think we do need to look at that more for bed and breakfast and inns to accommodate that, because those travelers are there. I wanted to touch on something too, Glynn, with you being a tour guide. And you talked about this in the article about if you're doing business somewhere, is to understand the lay of the land.
Yes.
I would think I used to, especially back in the print days, if I was going to develop a territory for, advertisers in the magazine, I would read every tourism guide I could. I would go to that town, drive it, get lost, get to know, what does the housing look like? What are their attractions like? And kind of take myself on a familiarization tour, like what media does, a fam trip.
Yes, of course.
But wouldn't that be something that you would do for business travelers, just so you could give them the lay of the land and say, no, you don't want to say this word. Yes, you want to say
Well,
this,
Well, that's always handy to know what to say and what not to say. But it's also quite good. For instance, you were having a conference with some big companies around where you are, and they invited you, one of your guests invited you out for a meal. If they took you to a really nice restaurant, that would be really good. So if you've actually got to know the area, and you've tried out some of these other places, or you've got some recommendations from local people, then you've got more idea about where you can take special people for a meal or something. But also, it's so much nicer if I have somebody come to stay with me who knows a little bit already. It just makes life a lot easier and a lot more comfortable if they already know a little bit about what they're looking at and what they're seeing and the local customs. So if someone has come into Norfolk, for instance, from, we'll say, the middle of America, never been to England before, it would be really handy to have a day before the conference to get a look around and to see what is in the area, and to get to know some local pubs, restaurants, cafes, just to learn a bit about where they are.
And how to even cross the street, because we look differently.
Well, you're looking the
You're on
wrong
the
way,
different
don't
side
you?
of the road. Yeah, we're all on
Yeah.
the same, we're on the wrong side of the road, right? But there's something to that too, is to go early, because sometimes, you have flight delays, and if you go right to the last second,
Oh, yeah.
you could lose your meeting. You know what I mean?
Well,
So I always think
exactly.
that buffer day is excellent to do. And a lot of times people are traveling with their partner, spouse, be a family member or a friend, going, hey, I'm going to England. Let's, I've got my company's paying me this much, maybe. Hey, let's add on a little bit here. So it's a more cost-effective way to go. And a lot of people are doing that.
Well, and also, I mean, with something like what I do, I mean, if there was a conference of, say, 100 people were coming to, we'll say, Birmingham, a big city, or coming to Norwich, or coming to Lincoln, or wherever, there's no reason why 50 of them shouldn't bring their partners, and I arrange for their partners to have a day out somewhere nice. That sort of thing could be offered by hotels, by bed and breakfast, by organizers of conferences. If you've got a conference coming up and you're organizing a conference, there's no reason why you shouldn't suggest to the attendees that you can offer something for someone who's tagging along for the conference, like a wife, a husband, a family members, or whatever, because there's always something to do in the area. And someone like me, I mean, I'm not just saying I could do it. I'm sure lots of people in lots of towns have contacts who could do that and offer a day out. One thing that I remember I did with a business organization that I was part of, they did exactly that, where the conference delegates turned up and their partners then went out on a bus trip for the day.
Nice.
That was brilliant, because then in the evening everybody comes together and the wife or the husband is happy because they've been out for a day, and the delegate to the conference is happy because he's been there, and also he's made his partner happy because he's treated them to a day out somewhere. So
Right.
and also they're more likely to come back, because then the partner is going to say, well, we went to this lovely place, we'll have to come back with the children or whatever.
I think you make a really huge point, because part of this big, walkout on work, right? You're seeing this in this country, of people just going, that's it, I quit. After COVID, they're like, I'm miserable in my job. I didn't realize how much I hated it. I was just doing the day-to-day thing.
Yeah.
And, also partners getting tired of their spouses, or partners, constantly working to a point of not helping, not their relationship isn't a relationship anymore if they're not together.
Yeah.
So part of the why people are leaving is, and we've seen report after report, even in the teaching industry, in the education field, is not supporting your employees for success and happiness. You're killing their passion. Like I look right now we've got Twitter and Elon Musk going, everybody, you've got to be hardcore workers, otherwise you're fired. I'm like, who does that sound like? So it's interesting to see this attitude. And yeah, there's a lot of people that are very passionate, very driven, and will do that. But once you're in a family zone, it's really difficult. And eventually marriages do break up over this, and partnerships can, if you do not have quality time together. And if you just are always driving someone to the grindstone. And I'm not saying Elon Musk is right or wrong. I'm just saying, if you've got to have a point where you're taking care of the family too. You're doing, a lot of companies started putting in gyms, and I'm talking about the really big ones like Google and Facebook, who just let people off too. But they have like areas for childcare. If you invest in the family, you're going to have a more productive workforce. That's what,
I mean, it's all the sort of the modern way of talking about all of that sort of stuff is the work-life balance, isn't it? In England, that's what they call it. And it is all about a balance between your work and your life. So if accommodation providers, if business conference organizers did something to just help that two parts of someone's life come together, then it helps everybody. It helps the accommodation providers, it helps the businesses, because the people are happier. It helps the relationships, as you've already said, because the partners are happier, because they're not stuck at home while their perception is that their partner is off on a jolly, so it just makes,
and wondering if their partner is messing around with the secretary. Not just saying, well, come on, it happens. Well, no, and I see this changing too. These big conferences where people are always gone. Oh, I'm at a meeting. Oh, I'm at a meeting. Well, eventually that gets old, that balance, like you're talking about. You have kids, you've got other things, and maybe you're a solo person and you're single and you have other interests in your life. And if you're not able to enjoy your special interests, you're going to be miserable as a human. That this goes to the general happiness index. I think every country has a rating of how happy people are. And if the workforce is not happy, you don't have a happy country. And when people don't spend money when they're not happy.
Well, and also people don't enjoy life. And
what's the point
then? Sounds really silly, but if you're not enjoying life in general, what is the point? You might as well just give up and go and live in a shed somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But I know we all have to work for a living. I know some of us, like me, are very lucky in that we do what we love for a living. So I haven't actually done a day's work for the last 12 years because I've been paid for what I love doing. So I haven't worked for 12 years. But in all seriousness, just think how lovely that would be if the majority of people said that, if they said they were getting paid for doing what they love. I mean, if say, for instance, these big companies or even small companies encourage workers to go to conferences and take someone with them, even if they paid for it, it would actually repay them in the end, because they're going to retain the workforce and they're going to have happy workers who are going to be more likely to give back to the business. You know, it's, I mean, how many people have worked somewhere that they don't like working and actually have taken from the business or have never given to the business? I mean, there was a thing going on years ago. I think it used to be called presenteeism or something. I think it was called presenteeism, when people were present, but they weren't really present.
Right.
So, you know, they were sitting at their desk.
You're not loyal.
Desk. Yeah, but they're not doing anything. So they might as well not be there. If your workers are happy, then they're going to be present. You know, and they're going to be working for you rather than just working. And
yeah, it's like George on Seinfeld, who just sat at a desk and ate lunch. You know, that was his thing, you know. But this, you know, the happiness factor, I think, is really crucial too. In the tourism industry, you know, you want people to be happy at these meetings, you know, and it's really hard to help and make people happy if they're already miserable, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
oh God, not another bloody conference, you know. I'm not doing it. Oh no, now your mom can't listen.
No.
No, but at the same time, you know, that happiness factor really moves on, and people do spend more money. People are more loyal to their client. They're more loyal. But I think back to business meetings that took place on the golf course, and they still do this.
Yeah, of course.
But it's a networking activity, and yet you're having fun. You're bonding over something other than just the business at hand. So you actually negotiate better deals, and you negotiate a better relationship because you're doing something together. And if you have differences, you've already found a common ground. And so I think that's what's interesting about golf or doing these activities together. I think that's just all these conferences, and there's expos, and there's, you know, book expos and book shows where people go, authors and writers, and connect with their readers. So that's also part of pleasure. So many people travel for their industry expos, which is business. And all of a sudden, hey, we can all do this activity together. You're all meeting each other. And it's a way of developing your business or craft. There's education. But if you're doing it in this fun setting, you're going to retain the knowledge. You're going to make better contacts. And you're doing something together that maybe puts you out of your comfort zone. And I think that is also something that's part of this conference, this retreat thing. There's challenges. The different team building exercises puts you out of your comfort zone where you have to help each other. And I think that's another huge part of, you know, pleasure, if you will, is, you know, maybe going on a hike together, and maybe, hey, you haven't hiked for how many years? Well, let's get through it together. Maybe we'll go on Peddler's Way, you know, or something like that. You know, I want to go on Peddler's Way.
Pedder's Way.
Pedders. Okay. I'm peddling things. It's business.
You can peddle. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, the best thing that you can do for people is to get them to know each other rather than the business. You know, it's no good. I mean, how many of us have been to networking events and we've spoken to a dozen people or whatever, but actually we haven't
come back with a handful of cards and you don't know who the heck they were.
We haven't got to know anybody. You know, if anybody sort of sees me at a networking event and they ask me what I do, you know, that's not what it's about. It's about what I'm passionate about, you know. So I very rarely ask people what they do. I ask them, you know, what they're passionate about, because that is what I want to know, who they are, rather than what they're selling.
Yeah, it's that quick exchange where you're not building a relationship, but if there's an activity, I think that helps people connect better at those kind of meetings.
Yeah, so a conference is a very false way of getting people together. and I think we need to reinvent the whole thing. But by extending the time that people are at a place, then they're going to actually have more time to actually get to know the people who are in the same area. You know, the conference, for instance, And if they have a day before, they can explore the area and they can know more about what the area is actually about rather than just a hotel. And also if they do have a chance to bring a partner, the partner can actually help them to make new acquaintances, because if you've got a busload of partners, well, you know, men, women, whatever, children, they're going to talk to each other and they're going to say, oh, did you know that Bill over there is such a thing? You know, he does this for a living or whatever, or Bill's interested in building his own home, or, you know, so the partners are going to be networking as well. And they're going to find things in common. So it's all about building relationships. You know, people, I mean, I remember I went to one of my first networking events and someone said, people buy from people. And if you know the people rather than the product, you're more likely to buy from them, or you're more likely to form a relationship.
And so it creates a trust factor, doesn't it?
Well, it is, you know, I mean, people buy products, obviously, but I would rather buy the same product from someone I have got to like rather than someone who I don't know anything about. Well, so it is all about relationships and about feeling friendly with each other rather than just sitting in your hotel room.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, Nancy's getting this, you know, new computer. That's why she's not here right now. And she tried to order it online and do a chat. And I just said, look, just get the computer and we'll go in and talk to people. It's the worst day. We're recording this on Black Friday. It's like the worst day. It's like my biggest nightmare is Black Friday. I hate it with a passion. She got a good deal, so that's good. But it's still, we don't know if we're getting the right thing because the communication was out the window. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean,
because she's trying to explain something that they're not understanding, and they're trying to explain something to her over a chat. That's not someone who goes, what are your needs? How can we best fill these, you know?
That is the problem. I mean, with the computer chat lines, I mean, how many times do we fill it in and it says, we don't understand that phrase. Could you phrase it in another way? Oh,
here's the FAQ list of links.
It's the bot, you know. I don't want to talk to a bot. I want to talk to a person. And that's like in England at the moment, we've got self-service counters in shops. I refuse to go through them because I want to talk to somebody, you know.
Well, you mean use for groceries?
Yeah, horrible.
We have that too. We have to scan our own groceries. And no matter what, they have to come help me because I screw it up every single time.
I do it on purpose. If that's all there is. I mean, when I went to Birmingham last year, there was no counter to go through. Me and my son were just buying something for breakfast out of the supermarket. There was no counter to go through apart from the self-service ones. So I went and screwed it up. So someone had to come and help me because I'm not going to do their work for them. And, you know, it's ridiculous.
And because their prices didn't go down. Just saying, it didn't go down, but we've got all these fancy things, you know. Well, this is, you know, it does always go back to relationships, and that's what travel is about too. And if you're going to meetings, it's about building relationships. So you bring such a huge point. I think that should be more activities for people to connect on. And there's some of these expos I'm talking about, you know, for specific industries. Maybe it's a garden expo, and then you'll have all the experts and you'll have the vendors, and then you have the public that is buying the services or the products or the plants, right? But when they have extra, you know, maybe it's seminars from the experts there or an author, people will go there and it unites the vendors, the experts, and the audience all together, which is really nice because somehow there'll be a meet and greet, or if it's an interactive Q&A kind of thing. It's like when you go to a thing and they let you ask the speaker something instead of, I'm the speaker, you will shut up and listen. You know, if it's not interactive, we get bored as human beings. We don't have that time. You know, our minds don't go that way.
Oh, that's right.
So I think those kind of interactive things, if we do more of that, and then that's utilizing partners in the tourism field. If you're on the tourism side of this, you know, it's like if you're in an area like in Central California, there's a huge agricultural hub. It feeds the world. It's known as America's, you know, breadbasket. If you go to a conference there and you're in the heartland, and maybe you are in food for some reason, and you don't go on a orange tour of the orange groves with Farmer Bob, you've missed out on all this knowledge, and you get to go on the back of a tractor ride. Now, come on, it's fun. And if you get on there with your colleagues or new people, you're doing something fun. It makes you feel like a kid again.
Yes.
And you're going to learn something, but you're all going to giggle because you're getting behind a huge tractor going through groves of oranges.
Yeah.
Come on. Who doesn't want to do that for some fun? I know people are going to go, well, I don't know, maybe, but it's fun. And again, takes you doing something different for everybody to have something to communicate about other than business.
Yes. I think that is so important. And also if you have at a conference and they have, because a lot of conferences I go to, they have sort of around the side of the rooms, they have people who are there for the different subjects. So they probably have a solicitor or an attorney, I think you call them, do you? And they probably have an accountant, and they probably have someone who does printing. They probably have somebody who does sending stuff through the post, you know. So they have different stands all the way around the conference center, but they very seldom have something from the local area. So they could have a half a dozen, you know, big business stands, but they could have a couple of local businesses. So that gives the people who are there a chance to see what is local, because a lot of people who come to conferences are only there for the day. So they don't actually know where they are. You know, they just get off the taxi or the train or whatever, go straight to the conference center, go to the conference, go back to the hotel, and then get on the train again. So they don't actually learn anything. So it'd be really good for conference organizers to have some local information as well. You know,
for travel and nonprofits too, for the charities.
Travel, nonprofit, food providers. So instead of using in a conference, instead of using a local, a big food provider, why not use a local food provider with local food? You know, instead of these things that come already packed up in plastic.
So it makes it a real experience.
Exactly. And
even if you are only that's one thing you can do. Someone who's putting on the conference, if the budget is tight, start looking at least bringing the local surroundings into the conference.
Yeah.
You may not be able to pay for day trips and extra hotel rooms, but you could do local food. You could hire a local musician for pub night at the conference. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
There's so many opportunities for people if they just think a little bit further than the conference. You know, there are so many things they could do, and so many things that are available to people if they just look for them. And they just don't, because they don't see how that's going to benefit at the end.
And you also, it's good to bring in, like you were saying, like for the vendors, but say it's the gardening expo, right? Or plant expo, like I was saying. Get the local botanical garden to come in and do part of the speaking, or, you know, bring in the local people as, you know, just as in the experts, you know, and maybe schedule a day. You know, sometimes when it's groups, that's the other thing. A lot of the prices can get cut because it's a group rate, you know, and you can even do it at a special time when it's a downtime for that activity or that attraction too.
But I mean, a lot would take your garden example. I mean, a local garden center or a local garden would probably even let a whole coach party come for nothing, because just look at the advert, look at the possible sales they could make, you know. So it's always worth just exploring these things. But even if you're not going to put it on, let your delegates know what's available in the area. I mean, how much would it cost just to print out an A4 sheet of stuff that's in the area that pertains to the conference? If there's a conference about gardens, why not make a little A4 sheet and put it in each of the delegates' rooms of all the different gardens in the area with the websites and email addresses? They could then look it up and come back. You know, you just don't know what seeds you can set by giving people that little bit more information. And it doesn't cost a lot, does it, to print an A4 sheet? You know,
well, you know, you give me a good idea too for some of the, you know, independent hotels and bed and breakfast lodgings, and because there's people business in traveling for business. Normally you go in, you get a welcome. There's a book that's in the hotels. And I know it's changed a lot now with the internet and websites. Like some places you check in, they will email you an app with a visitor guide on your phone. So you can click to where you want to go, and which is really nice. But I think it should go into this level of, are you traveling for business? If you need to overnight something, or you need to do, like, here's your business guide for best places for meetings. If you need to meet a customer, this is a good coffee shop that's not too loud, or like, put something. And in tourism, we all know innkeepers, destinations have to run blogs, social media, all of that to keep everybody informed on the area. Write it as a story and then print it out and give it to them, or email. Hey, if you're traveling, it's a blog. It's good for your SEO for your website. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. There are so many opportunities for people who can just give it a little bit of thought. It's all.
And I want to say too, you talked about desks and rooms.
Yes.
Make sure that there's plugs next to. Don't make us have to bring our own extension cords. I'm traveling with them. I know I am, but like, I'm just saying, make sure you don't. It's like, oh, here's the desk, here's the chair, but you're not plugging in anywhere, because you're going to unplug the refrigerator if you do that, or the air conditioner if you do that. So there's a thought, and sometimes be creative about it. And if your room doesn't do it, supply the cord or something, do something, because if people can't charge things, they're not going to be happy.
Well, exactly. And it's all about putting yourself in the position of your guest. I mean, I remember when I was working with adults who had learning difficulties and have had physical difficulties, it weren't until then that I realized how the world was totally unequipped for people in wheelchairs. Because even though places said we were wheelchair friendly, for instance, we would turn up and they would have a shingle car park, so they'd have a car park with stones.
Right.
You cannot push a wheelchair across stones. We would go into a shop and we'd be trying to push a wheelchair around, and there'd be things in the middle of the corridor of the alleyways in the shops. If you want to know what it's like to be a customer, put yourself in the place of the customer. So book into one of your hotel rooms and see what it's like to spend a night in one of your own hotel rooms. Then you might guess what it's like as a customer.
And park in your parking space too, and see what it's like.
I mean, there are so many things that hotel owners and B&B owners, restaurants, any sort of business can do just by putting themselves in the shoes of their customers, just to see what it's like. And that's why, you said earlier that I always check things. Very often me and Diane will go away for a weekend in a hotel that I'm thinking about using, because I'm not going to put someone in a hotel if I've never been in the door.
Right.
I want to know what it's like. I want to know whether the bed is comfortable. I want to know if the curtains are clean. I want to know if the bathroom is fallen to pieces. So I have to do my own quality checks.
That's a really sad part of your life, isn't it, Glynn?
Well, you have to do these things.
I know, staycation around England. That's it. That's awesome. But
and I get paid for it.
You've got a really good destination for meetings, and right now it is cost effective to go to England.
Oh, it is.
Just saying. So Glynn, your next segment with us in January. Can you believe it's another year, Glynn? How did this happen?
I don't know. I'm getting old.
Oh, wait, December. It'll be December when you come on. Sorry, not January. I've already skipped. See, maybe that's why time flies.
Well, it's nearly December now.
Yeah, I know. This will be airing the 26th, right? Okay, we've got this. So the 26th of November. So December, when you come on, we're going to be talking about planning your trip to England for business travel, types of places you can stay, activity ideas, and what you can do, especially as a tour guide. Some great ideas for maybe the partners or family that are traveling with them. So looking forward to that and digging into what England has to offer. And cheese scones is part of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, so much to offer. Funnily enough, I went into the local post office yesterday on the way to see my mum, and I bought her the local newspapers because she likes to have something to read. And opposite the post office, they're now going to open a new coffee shop and delicatessen. So I am going there to try the cheese scones.
Cheese scones. Here it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
Here it is. Everyone, Glynn's article's up on blendradio.tv.com. Glynn is here every fourth Saturday. So his next appearance will be in December on the fourth Saturday. And you can also keep up with him at norfolk-tours.co.uk. He is also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Keep up with him there. And of course, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you, Glynn.
Thanks a lot. Bye.